Hello, my name is Chris, and I am back from Fresh Look Cinema. We are going to be doing another movie review about The Power of the Dog. So, this is starring Benedict Cumberbatch, and it was fantastic. Now, at the very beginning, I was hooked. At the middle, I'm not going to lie to you, it dragged. So, there's 5 acts to this story. First act got me hooked. I was ready. I wanted to learn more. Then the second, third, fourth act were lackluster, but that fifth act, man, that brought it home. I believe the first and fifth act, probably for me, most fantastic work I've seen Benedict Cumberbatch in a very long time. He's an amazing actor, well rounded, and this Western look and take on this role was phenomenal. So that's what I'm going to review, and we're going to start in just a second. If you haven't already, smack the like button for the almighty YouTube algorithm, and also subscribe for more content about movie reviews, anime reviews, manga, video games, everything. I review everything on this channel because I find it fascinating and interesting, and I want to do it for you guys. So please, if you haven't already, subscribe. So before we jump into the movie review, I'm going to go over some of the characters. We have, I'm pretty sure, 5 main characters. We have the two brothers, Phil, which is the polar opposite of George. So Phil is the rugged cowboy that learned everything from this legend of a character called Bronco Henry. Phil is very dark. He has some internal conflicts with letting go for change, and something that he's been facing for a very long time that seems to be a huge secret in the story. George is a very shy businessman. He's very standoffish to himself. He tries to have leadership concepts, but it doesn't pan out very well. He's not a very good leader compared to Phil, which is a very strong leader, even though he can be very ruthless and rude sometimes. But George, very standoffish, very innocent in regards to things that both brothers have went through. And he's also very compassionate towards other people, especially the next character, Rose. Rose is a widow with her only son, Peter. They both live and own a business called the Red Mill. There, they serve kind of like a bed and breakfast, and that's what they do in their town. So the big conflict of this whole movie kind of begins at the Red Mill. Phil comes in with all his cowboys, pretty much takes control of the room, tells them to turn the piano off, gets his food, is extremely rude to the waiter, which is the boy Peter. And there's that first initial conflict of Phil making fun of Peter for making these paper flowers, and then actually burning one in front of him after the fact that he learns that Peter made it. So that big conflict ensues. But what happens after, when everyone leaves, Phil's party leaves, and Phil leaves also, George is left there, and George apologizes to Rose and kind of begins to have feelings for her. As this progresses, Phil absolutely hates this. Again, going back to his character, he hates change. So we see this where Phil literally picks on Rose, belittles her, embarrasses her, just goes beyond the call of duty to make fun of Rose and make her not feel welcomed throughout the whole entire film. He is relentless. And then, not ruining or spoiling the story, he starts going after Peter. So once this starts happening, you start seeing characters change rapidly. And the characters that are most effective is Rose and Peter. Now, the most stoic characters I'd have to say would be George and Phil. They still act in character. Phil is still ruthless. He's still rude. He's still, very annoying when it comes to accepting change. George is more relaxed, kind of standoffish when it comes to conflict with his brother, but he's still very innocent in regards to he's very compassionate. He's still very helpful when it comes to Rose and Peter. So the big changes and what kind of kept me going through Acts 2, 3, and 4 is seeing the dynamic changes in Rose and Peter. You see Rose begin to drastically decline. She becomes an alcoholic. She she just declines as a person. She starts slipping into depression. And then you see Peter begin to grow. You see him as this flamboyant boy, not really wanting to do any boyish activities. He just likes to color, draw, and make roses. So that is everything Phil hates. And Phil really wants to make him a man, wants to teach him how to run a ranch, how to take care of cattle, how to ride a horse. So in the story between the acts, Phil begins to teach Peter new things, offer him some assistance when it comes to becoming a man in Phil's eyes. We see this friendship begin to happen, but there's a bigger secret in it. And I'm not going to spoil it, but this secret pretty much keeps Peter and Phil together because Peter finds out Phil's huge secret, and there's a plan going in Peter's head. Peter's character starts to develop quickly through these acts. Peter, we think as this innocent boy, starts becoming very different altogether. He drastically becomes a man quicker. He has acts of ruthlessness that is seen from Phil. He still has his innocent nature, but it's interesting. He even foreshadows to Phil that his father always wanted him to be a little nicer. So we get to see this ruthless side of Peter start to emerge, and it's fantastic. The acting from each of these characters is phenomenal. We get to see Peter develop from this flamboyant boy that, wants to, again, make flowers and draw, to this boy that's, and I'm not going to ruin it, but he becomes very ruthless towards the end. We have Phil that constantly is on everybody's case, hates change, but starts to accept things. And once he accepts things, it turns to be his downfall in his characterization and other things. Now, George, again, very stoic character, doesn't change, very background, hey, it's all good, everything's fine, everything will always be fine. And then you have Rose, again, just just losing her mind pretty much in this movie, and seeing these characters interact, their internal conflicts, the conflicts between each other is phenomenal. I love this story because it's set in a Western background, and I mean everything is fit together. There's so much symbolism when it comes to, again, like a rope. There's a rope that is used that's very symbolic throughout the movie, and it begins with I'm pretty sure between the middle of scene 3 or 4, and it just carries on all the way to the last scene. And this rope you're just having in the back of your mind it's amazing how they tied together this rope with people's lives. So seeing the symbolism between everything and how everything just fits together. So each scene is laid out with pieces that end in the final scene. And I really like the structure of this film. I like the flow. My only complaint I would have to say throughout this whole movie would be the slowness of scene 2, 3, and 4. And I know it's a building process. They had to build it up for scene 5. I understand that, but it was just really slow. I wish there was something that happened, some action, or maybe some story or more foreshadowing that could have sped along those acts a little bit faster. But overall, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the acting. I was extremely impressed with the character Peter, just developing so quickly, and what he does at the end of Act 5. So just seeing these characters develop, I believe, was the best part of the movie. I definitely wouldn't say a family movie, but definitely a movie to sit back with your significant other or your friends and just enjoy, because I believe this is probably my favorite movie watching of Benedict Cumberbatch in a long time. It's very eerie, and I actually watched The Grinch recently with his voice acting, and it just threw me off because I watched this whole movie where he's this ruthless cowboy rancher that's dedicated so much on the growth of the ranch, and hearing the Grinch's voice or hearing him portray the Grinch was crazy. Just seeing him being such an amazing actor and being able to be so well-rounded, it's great. If you haven't already, smack that subscribe button and like this video for more content where I review movies, animations, manga, video games, and everything else in between. Thank you again, and see you later.